Another thing that they can learn about you from this question, from your response to this question, is how you react in tricky situations. Why did you leave your previous job? If you're having issues answering this question, or if you're dreading this question in an upcoming job interview, this video is for you, because I will share some powerful tips when it comes to answering this tricky interview question, and also share some answer examples based on different scenarios that you could be in. These scenarios depend on why you've left your previous job. I've asked you for the reason why you've left your previous job here in my YouTube community tab of my YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Instagram, all of these different sources. And I got so many responses that I have categorized, grouped up in different categories, which we will go through today. So it's very likely that the situation that you're in is in one of those categories. I will leave chapters for easy navigation so that you can find the situation that you're in. However, I encourage you to watch the whole video because it will give you a good 360 overview of how you could answer this question, and just, I'll be sharing some of my thoughts and insights throughout the video, so you might learn something from a different situation, from how I would approach different situations too, so stick around for that. But also, thank you so much for all of your answers. I got so many that I have decided to create another video on the topic for why people are leaving their jobs. So that is going to be next week's video. Stay tuned, subscribed, etc., not to miss it. And if we haven't met yet, hi, my name is Masha, and I'm a career strategist helping you grow your career strategically by working smarter, not harder. If that's something that you'd like to do more of in your life, make sure you subscribe to this channel and give this video a like to tell the algorithm that you like this kind of content, so that it serves more of my videos to you. And also, it really helps spread my message and supports my channel, so I really appreciate you for doing that. Before we get into the meat of the video, or your vegetarian protein of choice, I want to briefly talk about the structure of this video. So first, I'm going to give you the general tips, general strategies that I think are important for answering this question, regardless of what situation you're in. And then we are going to go throughout the different situations, and we're going to, there will be some general tips that I will give for every situation, and go through the potential answers that you can give in those situations. So I have grouped all of your different responses in 7 different categories. The first category is the lack of growth opportunity. Second category is not being paid enough. Third is a toxic environment, which includes having a toxic manager. Then fourth, lack of motivation, being bored essentially. 5, it didn't fit your lifestyle choices. And that can encompass so many different scenarios. For example, you are planning to have a child and the benefits weren't conducive, or you needed flexible time in order to take care of an elderly parent, and the job did not allow for that. So any of those lifestyle choices, your work environment wasn't providing them. So that's that category. Then we have number 6, relocation. You were trying to relocate, physically move somewhere else, and your job wasn't allowing that. And then finally, 7 is reorganization. And that may mean, like a general restructurization of the company, or let's say your manager, your favorite manager or supervisor has left. So I just want to address that one in that one category, because I think we will talk about this, but you don't want to give too many details in these responses, and so being general actually helps a lot. If you think a category is missing and something that needs to be addressed in this type of response, let me know in the comments below. Also, a little disclaimer, this video is for you when you have voluntarily left your previous job. However, if you'd like me to create a separate video on the responses if you've been fired or laid off, let me know in the comments. If there is enough demand for that type of content, I will do my best and create a video sometime soon. So let me know in the comments if that's a need. Now let's get into those general tips. So first of all, a little overview of the question. This question, why did you leave your previous job, can come from curiosity or a strategic It is a strategic way for the interviewer to learn so many different things about you. One of those things is, why did you leave your previous job? Are you going to leave this job as quickly as possible? How do they make you stay? Is this going to be a concern for this organization? And also, if there are any red flags about you. Another thing that they're looking for is, will you badmouth your previous employer? Will you talk badly about them? And finally, another thing that they can learn about you from this question, from your response to this question, is how you react in tricky situations. A lot of people call this a negativity question, and your job here is to give it a positive spin, to come out in a positive way. So they are looking at your ability to do that, or just how are you going to react? How are you going to go about this behavioral question? So the first general tip that I have for you is a general structure for this response. So first of all, you want to start off with something positive about your previous job, the job that you have left, or the company that you have left. For example, I've enjoyed my time at company X. Or I have learned a lot in my previous role. Or finally, I'm grateful for the time that I've had at company X. Some examples, mix and match, do your thing. But start off in a positive note. Next, we are going to move on to the reason why you actually left. And if it is relevant, demonstrate how you tried to fix it internally before making the decision to leave. Because that shows a lot of positive things about your character. It shows that you tried to fix a problem before quitting. And then finally, number 3, tie it back to this company that you're applying for, this role that you're applying for, and showcase why it is going to be different here, again, if that is relevant, and show that you are excited for this opportunity, about this opportunity. So that was the structure that I would recommend for this type of response for any type of situation. Now, tip number 2 is don't talk negatively about your previous employer, about your previous team, role, etc. No matter how much of an awful experience it was, try your best not to talk negatively. This is not the time and place to, share all of the awful experiences that you've had. This is not your therapist. This is an interviewer who is trying to see whether you are going to talk negatively about your previous employer. They're trying to They're trying to see how you react on the spot. And if you do talk negatively about your previous position, the thoughts that are running through the interviewer's head are, first of all, what will happen when this person leaves this organization? Are they also going to talk so negatively about our company, about my team, about me, about this role, etc.? And how will this be negative? Will this be bad for the company's reputation to hire this person who badmouths their previous employer? That's number 1. Number 2 is, was this person a troublemaker? Could they be trouble in this organization as well? And finally, it just leaves a negative imprint, a negative impression on your communication. So you want to make sure that you're still, if it was a negative experience, you are being as neutral and positive as possible. And finally, you just, using the structure that we've talked about, you basically go back to, why are you so excited for this next opportunity? Like in a positive way. Tip number 3 is keep it simple. You don't want to spend time on this question. You don't want to dwell on this topic for so long, because this is talking about your previous position. We want you to spend as much time talking about your future and why it is aligned with this new company, with this new role. Why is this a good fit? You want to demonstrate. You want to have more opportunity, more time to demonstrate why you are a great fit for this role, for this new company, and not talk about the previous one. So not as many details. And the more details that you share, the more potential follow-up questions you might get. So keeping it simple and general is the best practice here. Because at the end of the day, your goal of this interview, of this conversation, is to spend as much time talking about why you're a good fit for this role, not why you were a bad fit or the company was a bad fit for you, the previous one. We're talking about the future here. Tip number 4, which kind of comes out of the previous one, don't share all the truth. Don't feel like you need to be super transparent here. Just say it in the general terms, because this person is not your therapist. They don't need to have a complete understanding of what was going on. And, a lot of the times they might misunderstand you. So let's just keep it very simple, very general. And finally, this way you're also in control of the narrative and you're able to give it a positive spin at the end, much easier than if you went into all of the details and shared all of the truth and the painful situations that you've been in. No, just keep it simple. And you are not lying. You are not embellishing anything by not sharing the whole truth and all of the details. Just, you're not a bad person. You are keeping it simple and general. That's all. That's what you need to do. Tip number 5, give it a positive spin. We've already talked about this, so I'm not going to dwell on it because we have a lot of content to get through. Tip number 6, speak with confidence, and that confidence can come from rehearsing your answer. As you know, confidence is key because as animals, we not only listen to what is said to us verbally, not only the content, but also the non-verbal signs. Those are very important, extremely important, in fact. So make sure that you have practiced this response, that you know what you're going to say, that you're not taken aback, and the interviewer doesn't think that there's something fishy that you might be hiding, etc. So you just want to be confident. And the best way to do that is to rehearse your answer. Number 7, prepare for potential follow-up questions. The more details you give, the more interesting the situation that you have, the more likely it is that you will get follow-up questions. So just in case, think through your responses. Just be ready in case if they ask you, they probe you further, because you don't want to seem taken aback. You don't want to be seen surprised. You don't want to all of a sudden drop that confidence and be a completely different person because that just shows inconsistency and is kind of fishy. And finally, number 8, make sure that you don't come off as a job hopper, which, luckily all of the different scenarios and all of the different answers that I will provide you with communicate that you have left the job because of some values that are very important to you. However, you want to stay somewhere next for the long term. And that is exactly why we are, in our structure, we are finishing off with why are you so excited to work at this company? Now, let's get into those scenarios. Number 1 is lack of growth opportunities. It is the easiest one in my opinion, and something that I would default to in most cases, to be honest. That's like the blanket statement because there's always room for growth, and it's just a good thing to display that you are trying to grow and develop, that's something that you really value. And most people understand when there are issues with growth and development in the current role, company, etc. That in itself is a positive spin here. So in this situation, you can say something like this: my learning curve has slowed down, and since I really value constant growth, I decided to look for other opportunities that will help me build my skills. And then you can tie it back to the company by saying something like, and that is why I am so excited about this opportunity, because I see it as the perfect next step in developing my skills, my knowledge, blah, 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 blah. That's a really nice general blanket response for this type of question. Now let's dive into a scenario within this scenario if you weren't getting promoted no matter what you did. So you can say something like, I've explored my options and realized that I have reached the ceiling in my career growth, so it was time for me to look for other opportunities externally. So in this case, you basically demonstrate that you really value growth and development, and you've already tried to fix it internally, right? You didn't just quit at the sight of a challenge, you tried to fix it. However, you realized that there's nothing that you can do internally, so you started looking externally. Again, tie it up back to the company, blah, 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 blah. These responses that I'm giving to you are the middle, the second step where you are talking about the reason. Then tie it back into the company. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. Another super simple response could be, I left for an opportunity to grow my career further. Super easy, super simple, general. So with this growth and learning opportunities response, the follow-up questions that could come up later is, what are you hoping to learn? What skills are you hoping to develop next? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? All of these questions about your vision for your future could come up. So make sure that you are prepared for it because, it could be a question that comes up as a behavioral question in general. But in this particular case, because you already planted the seeds, this is where it could come up. So just be ready. Category number 2 is when you're not being paid enough. Now, this is a tricky one because money is a sensitive topic and you don't want to come off as someone who only cares about money, as a money grabber, etc. Especially if you're a woman, because we have a whole matrix of perception and variables that is going on here. So even though I believe that we should be having much more transparent conversations about money and income, this is not the time for you to have it, and I don't want you to experiment with how you say it when you are in this vulnerable position. Honestly, what I would do is use the responses from the growth and learning and development category to mask the reason here, because again, you're not lying. This is part of career growth, compensation growth is part of career growth, and you are not lying. You're just saying it in a slightly different way, in a general corporate way. So you can use one of the previous responses that we've talked about, or you can say something like, I was ready for my next challenge and my previous role wasn't going to provide it, unfortunately. So I decided to look elsewhere. Or I reassessed my career goals and vision and decided that my current career role no longer fits those goals. Oh, and I have more for you. Let's go. I didn't feel like I had any more opportunity to grow or further my career in this role, so I decided to look for a change. Or there's another way to say this whole thing just using slightly different words placed in different ways. I didn't feel like there was an opportunity to grow or advance further in that role, so I decided a change would be best for my career. You see, they're kind of all saying the same thing, but just in different ways, and they're all super nice and rounded around the corners and edges. Or finally, if you want to say something closer to the truth, you could say something like, I felt like I wasn't being recognized for my value, so I'm hoping to find an environment where the impact I have isn't overlooked, and then tie it back to the company. Why do you think it will be different? I think it's a good idea to tie back to the company culture and values. If you've researched that, you should research that. Just say, I see this company as a place where this, my full potential and my value will be recognized because you value this, this, and this, and this, and this. Or, you've spoken to potential colleagues, etc. This is why you think it's going to be different in this company. This response may trigger some tricky follow-up questions, so make sure that you've thought through them. However, if you do tie back to the company and to the culture and values, etc., that might minimize that follow-up curiosity. Basically, essentially, if your response sparks someone's curiosity, and if they're like, oh, is this going to happen to our company? That is when you're going to get those follow-up questions most of the time. So just be ready. Just think about how your response to this question comes off to the interviewer, and therefore what effect will it have on their curiosity, and will they want to know if this is going to repeat in this company? So if that's the case, there will be follow-up questions, so just be ready. Category number 3, toxic environment, including having a toxic manager. Again, we don't want to tell the whole truth because the whole truth is very negative, and we don't want you to come off as negative, have a negative perspective, etc. So the 2 scenarios that I see for you here are default to our favorite category of opportunities and growth, and just use one of those responses, or default to the environment. Say that the environment wasn't conducive to your development, learning, etc. Again, we're using that as our little crutch here because we don't want to trash your previous employer. We've already discussed why that is not the right time, so we're not going to do it. I really don't recommend it, no matter how awful that environment was. Taking the first route is the easiest in my opinion. I would default to that most of the time because the second route is a bit trickier and may lead to some follow-up questions that you just want to make sure that you're being prepared for, etc. That you are prepared for. So if you do want to take more of a transparency route, here's some of the responses that you can give in this situation. I felt like I wasn't aligned with the company's values, but I've learned a lot about what I'm looking for in an ideal work environment, and that's partially why I'm so excited about this new opportunity. So you see what you've done here? You said that it was the company values that were bad. It was a bad environment. You said that you have gained something from it. You know what you're looking for. So, you weren't trying to fix the environment, but you have learned, you have taken something positive out of it, and then you tie back to the company. So this is a response with a tie back to the company. Or what you can do is, at some point I realized that the working environment wasn't conducive to my growth. So I've decided to look for other opportunities. We tied it back to the environment and to your growth, combined it and created the perfect blend of a response that you could use. All right, so category number 4, which is lack of motivation. We don't want you to give off an impression that you are easily bored or that you lack motivation to the interviewer. We don't want that to be the summary that they get out of this response. So we want to make sure that there is a positive spin here at the end. So you can say something like this. Over time, I felt like I wasn't being challenged enough in my role. I've explored way to learn more within the organization, but I felt like none of those opportunities fit my vision for my career. So I started looking for other opportunities externally. Look at this. So you've stated that it didn't happen immediately, over time. Then you tried to fix it. You tried to look for other opportunities internally to learn and grow and be challenged. So you take initiative, you don't quit immediately, and then when you realize that your efforts are fruitless, you started looking for opportunities elsewhere. And now you can tie it back to this new position and be like, that is why I'm so excited, because I see it as the next big challenge in my career. Something like that. This demonstrates to the potential employer that you want to be challenged, you value growth and all of that good stuff, but also that you are proactive about seeking opportunities that challenge you, that you will be proactive about telling your manager when you're in that role that you need more challenging, more learning, more challenges, more learning opportunities, because you are proactive about it. And that is a good trait. We want that. We want the interviewer to think that. And we want you to have that, right? We're not tricking the interviewer here, right? We want you to be that candidate in and itself. Another potential response that communicates a shift in your role and basically says that that was the reason why you became bored and not challenged. I was hired for a certain role, but over time that role changed and I was no longer being given the opportunity to do the work that I was interested in. Or I didn't feel like the job was using my abilities to the fullest or challenging me enough. Finally, an answer that might be even closer to the truth, however, may lead to some tricky follow-ups. I was no longer finding the work fulfilling or enjoying my work as much. Again, I would tie back to the company, put a positive spin on why this opportunity will be different. You can refer to the company mission, values, all of that stuff, impact that you're excited to have in this role. Basically, you have to tie it back to why is it going to be different in this role. Category number 5 is if it didn't fit your lifestyle choices. Now, this one is a little tricky as well. All of them are tricky, except for growth. This one is also a little tricky because you want to demonstrate a balance of, valuing your life and work-life balance, but also being committed to the work that you are doing, being a team player and being there to do the work. So you don't want to go too far onto either side. You want to demonstrate that you are a person who values a healthy work-life balance, and that is not going to compromise your output at work. So for example, you can say something like, I value a healthy work-life balance, and unfortunately my previous team culture wasn't aligned with these values. Or if there has been a shift in your lifestyle, in your responsibilities at home, you can use a response like this. My responsibilities at home have changed, so I needed to find a work culture that was more flexible, allowing me to work from home. Let's say that working from home was something that you needed. Or let's say that there has been a change in your commitments at home, and so you needed the flexibility to work from home. Your response could be something like, My responsibilities at home have changed, so I needed a work culture that was more flexible, allowing me to work from home. You see, you're not really getting into the details of what those commitments are. You're just saying that they have shifted and you needed an environment that allowed you to work from home. Another response that you can give is, I've realized that I needed more flexibility in terms of my working hours in order to take care of my family. My previous role didn't allow for that, so I decided to look for an opportunity where I can make an impact while having a flexible work schedule. Notice how you are focusing on still having an impact while having a flexible work schedule. The impact is the focus of that second sentence, where you are communicating that you are committed, that you are excited to make that impact. Let's say that you had to leave your job urgently for some urgent family matters. It could be a sick parent, it could be having a baby, it could be so many different things. However, you've resigned and now you're looking for the next opportunity because you can get back to work. So your response could be something like, I resigned from my last job to take care of a family issue. The issue is now resolved, so I'm able to work full-time again without any issue. Great response. And finally, another scenario where you were commuting for a very long time and you were looking for something that was closer to your house. You could say something like, I was commuting and spending hours in my car every single day. I would prefer to be closer to home. I would then recommend tying it back to this new opportunity, to this new role, and sharing your excitement and commitment to making an impact, to kind of balance it out, to make sure that you are demonstrating that you are committed. Lifestyle is important to you, however, you're very excited to dig in and have that impact. Number 6 is relocation. This one, in my opinion, is super easy because it is very easy to understand. That is the reason why I left my job at Google back in the day, and this is my go-to response whenever anybody asks me why I left Google. And trust me, I have received that question so many times here, in person, in interviews, everywhere. So my go-to response is, I was looking to relocate to Colorado for personal reasons. I've looked internally for opportunities that might be a good fit, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything that would be the great next step for my career. So I've decided to explore my options externally. And that is the 100% truth. I have looked internally before I ever started looking externally. I wanted to stay with the company. I wanted to transfer internally. However, I couldn't find anything that was the right next fit for me at the time, for my career at the time. So I decided to look externally, and that's what happened. You can also say something like, it's always been my dream to live in a place X, and I felt like this was the right time to make the move. My previous company didn't have offices there, and they aren't huge fans of remote work, so I decided to look for opportunities elsewhere. Again, super easy, super simple, very easy to understand. It's been your dream to live in a new place, so there it is. And finally, we have the reorganization scenario where something has changed in the structure of the company and you just no longer saw yourself working there. Again, this is something that is pretty common. People don't really like reorgs, and it is a trigger, an external trigger that indicates that you were not the reason. It was the reorg that was the reason. However, you still want to indicate that you did explore ways to fix the situation internally before looking externally. So you can say something like, the company has undergone a reorganization and my role has changed. It no longer challenged me in the same way that I was hoping to be challenged. So after exploring internal opportunities to change roles, I've decided to look elsewhere. Another potential response, the company's structure has changed and I no longer had the same growth opportunities as before. I explored opportunities to grow within the company, but realized that they are no longer aligned with my vision. And finally, the final example of this video is, I've been with the company for many years and have really enjoyed working with my team. A recent reorg has changed the team, so I took it as a sign to experience a new environment to continue growing. And finally, you want to make sure that you tie it back to the organization. Why are you so excited to join this new environment, this new team, etc.? Why it fits your vision. you want to tie it back to make sure that the recruiter, the interviewer, understands that you are not a risk of flight, that you understand why you're joining the company and that you are joining it for the long haul because you are aligned with the vision, you are aligned with this new experience, etc. Wow, this has been a long video. I'm excited to edit it. Let me know what you thought about these responses in the comments. If you have any other follow-up questions or if you have any other situations that you'd like me to go through. And finally, if you have been fired or laid off and you'd like me to create a separate video on how to respond to this question when that has been the case, let me know in the comments because I want to see if this is something that is a challenge that you are facing and if I can address it with some content. Like this video if you've enjoyed it and if it has been helpful, if this has helped you find the response that you need for your next interview. And also to support this channel because every single interaction really helps. Let's continue this conversation in the community tab because this is where I got this question from. Originally, somebody shared a challenge that they were facing with interviews, with the behavioral questions, so I took it and I went with it. And of course, next week's video is going to share the different reasons, according to different studies, on why people leave their jobs. And there's some interesting information there. I'm excited to share it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't subscribed already, and we can also be friends on other social media. You can find me as Stereotype Breakers. Have a wonderful time the day you're currently experiencing. Bye.